That Christmas morning is burned into my memory. The fire was crackling and my whole family was gathered. My mother stood up, smiling. She made a little speech. She said the family beach house, our precious heirloom, would go to my sister Elise. She deserves it more, Mom said brightly. Everyone laughed politely. I felt all the air leave my lungs. My chest hurt with a sharp, physical pain. I had always been the responsible one, the quiet helper. It didn't matter. My sister smiled, radiant and victorious, from across the room. I felt completely invisible. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked outside alone. I looked at the gray winter ocean, and I made a silent vow. This injustice would not be the end of my story. Let me introduce myself. My name is Maya. I was always the invisible daughter. I was quiet, dependable, and deeply creative. My friends and coworkers trusted me with their biggest secrets and projects. But at family gatherings, I was wallpaper. Elise took all the attention without even trying. She had a way of laughing that made everyone look at her. The beach house wasn't just a building. It was a symbol. My mother's words were a clear message. I would never be enough. My own mother had publicly chosen her favorite. That night, I sat in my car in the driveway. I could see Elise laughing through the window, already planning her new decor. My heart tightened, but a new feeling stirred. A plan began to form in the quiet of my mind. My work became my refuge. I am a coastal architect. I design homes that belong to the landscape. My office became my sanctuary. There, my ideas mattered. I poured my heart into designs that were innovative and careful. I won small awards for sustainable materials. I earned quiet respect from my peers. This proved my worth in a world outside my family. It was a slow, steady kind of proof. Every time I finished a blueprint, I felt stronger. While I built my career, the beach house loomed in my mind. It was a constant symbol of everything I had been denied, a beautiful place that represented a very ugly truth. My sister, Elise, was the one everyone loved. She was charming and persuasive. She was also deeply selfish. She never worked the long hours I did. She floated from one hobby to another, funded by our parents. Yet, she received all the accolades. Every family celebration somehow became about her achievements. A promotion at her easy job was a huge party. My architectural award got a quick, "That's nice, dear." The injustice wasn't just about a house. It was the message that my integrity, my hard work, meant nothing. One afternoon, I overheard her talking to a neighbor over the fence. She was bragging about the beach house, calling it her well-earned retreat. That moment planted the seed for my long-term plan. I started saving every single penny. I lived in a small apartment. I packed my lunch. I invested my bonuses carefully. I was planning for the long game. Every project I completed at work, every small win, felt like a brick. I was building a new foundation, one made of my own effort. My goal was still fuzzy, but my determination was solid. I would reclaim my power, not with a shout, but with a masterpiece. One evening, a December snowstorm hit the city. I looked at a photo of the beach house from my childhood. I stared at it, imagining the day I could outshine Elise without saying a single word to her. I had to confront my feelings. The humiliation sat in my stomach. The anger was a hot coal. The sadness was a deep, cold well. But I made a decision. I would not lash out. That would only make me look bitter. Instead, I channeled everything into patience, strategy, and excellence. I started a secret list of goals in my notebook. The last item on the list was this: the beach house will no longer be her trophy alone. A few days later, I was reading the local paper. A small listing caught my eye. It was for the adjacent Cliffside property, a huge plot of land right next to the beach house. It was even bigger. A light sparked inside me. I drove out to see the Cliffside property that weekend. The view was absolutely breathtaking. You could see the entire coastline, including the roof of our family beach house below. The land was wild and overgrown, but the potential was endless. A powerful idea took root. If I could buy this, I could change everything. I could change the entire power dynamic. It was expensive, a huge stretch. But it was my first concrete step toward reclaiming my life. Standing there in the wind, I felt a sense of belonging I never felt at the family house. This could be mine. I called my financial advisor late that night. "Can we make this happen?" I whispered into the phone. At the office, my hard work paid off. I earned recognition for a major coastal restoration project. My name was mentioned in industry newsletters. People in professional circles started to know who I was. This respect became my fuel. It showed me that the world outside my family valued my talent and my vision. It gave me the courage to keep going. Then, a local investor expressed interest in my designs. He loved my sustainable approach. This was it, a chance to gain both money and influence. This could speed up my plan for the Cliffside. Everything was starting to connect. During a New Year's Eve visit to the beach house, Elise flaunted her new renovations. She had added a huge, flashy glass deck. But my architect's eye immediately saw the flaws. The supports looked weak. The design was expensive but shallow, blocking the natural view. It was all for show. She was so proud. I just smiled quietly to myself. Her poor choices could backfire spectacularly. I left that night with a renewed sense of determination. I didn't need her house. I could build something better. Timing was everything, and I would be patient. I created a meticulous financial strategy. I mapped out my salary, my investments, and every bonus. I cut all unnecessary spending. My secret goal was the Cliffside property. Every day, I checked my savings growth. Every day felt like inching closer to my dream. I felt like a runner training for a marathon no one knew I was running. Then, I received a tip from a realtor friend. The owners of the Cliffside were getting older. They might be willing to sell soon. The clock was now ticking in my mind. I had to be ready. Months of focused work paid off. I gained mentorship from a senior architect I admired. I built relationships with thoughtful investors. My personal life was calm and balanced. But the memory of the beach house still loomed. It was a constant reminder of the injustice I faced. One weekend, I was looking through old family files for a project. I found a faded blueprint. It showed the exact property line between the beach house and the Cliffside land. I saw a strategic advantage. Part of the Cliffside had a legal right-of-way that touched the beach house's access road. This information was gold. At a holiday party, Elise casually mocked my frugality. "Still driving that old car, Maya?" she said with a sweet smile. "You should treat yourself." Our relatives chuckled. I just smiled back politely. Inside, I was calculating. Her comment showed how little she understood real value. She saw money for spending. I saw money for building. This chapter showed my resilience and my intelligence. I would not play her game. Later, she mentioned to our aunt that she might sell a small, wooded portion of the beach house lot for quick cash. My ears perked up. The opportunity was becoming real. I made my move. I contacted the owners of the Cliffside property. My offer was tense and expensive. It took almost all my savings and a careful loan. But I knew it was worth it. This was the first concrete step in reclaiming what was unjustly denied to me. Signing the initial papers made my hands shake. This wasn't just a purchase. It was a declaration. A few days later, the seller's agent called back. There was interest from another buyer, a developer. My stomach dropped. I had to act fast or lose my dream. Obstacles arose immediately. There were legal complications with the Cliffside property. An old land use dispute from decades ago resurfaced. I had to consult my lawyer. The tension was high. I had to navigate this bureaucracy without a single error. I spent late nights researching property law. This was my battle, and I had to fight it myself. Then I got a nervous call from my realtor. Elise's realtor had heard about my offer. She was asking curious, suspicious questions. The walls were closing in, and I had to be smarter. At the same time, my major office project was accepted by a prestigious environmental foundation. My professional reputation skyrocketed. I was interviewed for a magazine. I felt a surge of power and confidence in my work life. Elise remained completely blind to this quiet rise. Then I saw a small headline in the local paper. Her beach house renovations had failed a code inspection. The flashy deck was not permitted. Karma was beginning its quiet work. I allowed myself a small, private smile. I finalized the Cliffside purchase. It was mine. The weight of the keys in my hand was incredible. I immediately began designing plans. I wanted to integrate the view with the land, creating a beautiful home and a public access path to a lookout point. This property wasn't just beautiful. It was strategically powerful. It would share the view with the community, something Elise would never do. One evening, I stood on my new land. I looked at the sunset over the cliffside and then down at the beach house. I imagined Elise's reaction when she saw what I had built. The anticipation was sweet. The first hint of change came from the neighbors. They noticed the surveying stakes and my frequent visits. Whispers started. The Cliffside property was going to be something stunning, innovative, and public-friendly. Elise heard these whispers at the local grocery store. She began to feel uneasy. She called our mother, her voice tight. "Did you know Maya is buying the cliff? Is she serious?" Mom called me, sounding confused. I just said I was working on a new project. I kept my cards close to my chest. At our next Christmas Eve gathering, the tension was subtle but real. Elise bragged about her beach house as usual, but her eyes kept darting to me. A cousin asked me about my work. When I mentioned ocean view projects, the room got quiet. Subtle comparisons between my growing reputation and her code violations began to emerge in the conversation. I revealed nothing specific, but internally I savored the anticipation. You could see the confusion on her face. She was no longer the only star in the family sky. Public praise arrived. The local paper featured my Cliffside property plans, calling it a model of sustainable coastal development. They printed my name and my picture. I received praise from the community and on social media. My professional standing grew. Meanwhile, Elise's social standing subtly diminished. People remembered the failed inspection. I heard from a friend that Elise was complaining to her circle. "She's just trying to show me up," she whined. She didn't understand. This wasn't about her. It was about me. But she was starting to lose control, and it scared her. I focused on my career and the Cliffside design. I began mentoring young architects at my firm, gaining more respect as a leader. My life was full and purposeful. Meanwhile, Elise's negligence caused small problems. A pipe burst at the beach house because she hadn't winterized it properly. The roof she'd chosen started to leak. She was learning that ownership meant responsibility. Then I got a tip from the same realtor. Elise, short on cash from her fines, was considering selling the very wooded lot she'd mentioned. Her short-term thinking was her greatest weakness. Elise started to panic. Her renovations had overextended her budget. The public whispers about her house's declining value grew louder. She began making rash decisions, like firing her contractor to hire a cheaper one. The quality of her home was crumbling, just like her confidence. I continued my quiet, steady work. I observed her self-sabotage without any interference. My Cliffside project was taking beautiful shape, a testament to planning and care. The contrast between our paths was becoming clearer to everyone who looked. I set the stage for the reveal. I invited my mother, our family, and even a few local investors to visit the Cliffside for a New Year's Eve gathering. I framed it as a simple sunset viewing. When they arrived, the property took their breath away. The design was elegant, functional, and blended perfectly with the land. The public lookout point was already a favorite for photographers. Everyone marveled at it. Elise stood there, visibly shaken. She had underestimated me completely. She thought I was just the quiet sister. Now she saw I was a visionary. That night, I revealed the full plans. I showed the blueprints for my modern, eco-friendly home and the public park space. Investors asked thoughtful questions. Family friends praised my community spirit. Elise tried to assert her authority, talking loudly about her beach house's original charm. But she was drowned out by the genuine admiration for my work. Her face paled. She realized her limited vision and her arrogance had left her behind. She was living in the past. I was building the future right next door. The public downfall followed quickly. The local news did a follow-up story on my Cliffside project. Inevitably, they mentioned the contrast with the neighboring historic property. Elise's beach house problems became public knowledge, the budget failures, the poor planning, the code violations. Her social standing in our town collapsed overnight. My reputation rose spectacularly. Elise lashed out at me in private, sending angry texts. But no one listened to her complaints anymore. Her power, built on favoritism and charm, was gone. Mine, built on skill and integrity, was solid. By the following spring, the Cliffside property was partially open. The public lookout was a beautiful park. My home was under construction. I was recognized as a visionary in my field. Elise, humbled and disgraced, decided to move out of town. She sold the beach house to a quiet family. I stood on my cliff one evening, watching the sunset. I felt peaceful and proud. Mom always said patience was a virtue. I didn't just wait. I planned. I worked. I built. And from my new height, I finally had the best view of all. The quiet daughter had not just won a house. She had built a legacy.